Hello again, my dudes, welcome back to the channel. This is Kadima and I'm bringing you another Elden Ring DLC build video, this time with the one build that kinda survived the patch nerfs that occurred recently following the release of the DLC and all the balancing and nerfing that happened. This is surprisingly the one build that survived the chopping board. That's right, we're talking about the Impenetrable Thorns build, which kind of just devastates everything when it comes to bosses. Any enemies, it just chugs their life away in quick and fast fashion. But let's talk about the build itself and why it is so powerful. Now, for our main weapon, we are using the Maternal Staff, which scales with intelligence and arcane for A values. It's got quite a few attribute requirements such as intelligence at 21 and arcane at 21. But with this build, you can easily get to those numbers and boost your sorcery scaling to 241, which is quite nice. On your other hand, your offhand, you want to have the Staff of the Guilty. This will passively boost the Thorn's sorcery and cause a slight blood loss buildup at 45 when you use it, but we are not going to cast it with the Staff of the Guilty. We are going to cast everything with the Maternal Staff. Now, on your other hand, you also want to have the Frenzied Flame seal, or any seal really, to be honest. This just happens to be the one with the highest incant scaling, and the only reason why you want the Frenzied Flame seal is so you can cast first the Golden Vow and then the Howl of Shahiri, which will boost your damage as well. I'm going to go to the numbers shortly, just presenting the armor and the gear first. You also want to have the White Mask for a little bonus, not a lot, but you might want to use Rakshasa's armor set for the remaining pieces, chest, gauntlets, and greaves. For the talismans, you want to have the Grave Mask Talisman, Radagon's Icon, so you can cast things a little faster, Lord's Blood Exaltation, and Aged One's Exaltation. For the flask, I recommend having the Magic Shrouding Cracked Tear, which temporarily boosts magic attacks, and the Cerulean Hidden Tear, so you can just eliminate all FP consumption, and you're just gonna dish out spell after spell after spell after spell, and you'll be good to go. You'll be killing everything when it comes to even Remembrance bosses. I've got a confession to make. This was the original build I used to kill Radagon on my playthrough, and I casted the Thorns twice. That's right. My Mimic casted the Thorns twice as well, and he was dead. From the beginning of the fight to the end of the fight, me and the Mimic, we casted Thorns 4 times. That's it, and Radagon was dead. But let's talk about the boosts to the damage and why this build is so broken. Now, the Maternal Staff, as I explained, is going to be the one staff we're going to use to cast our sorcery. And in this case, the only sorcery you want to have equipped is the Thorns, because if you equip anything else, the Mimic will be tempted to use that stuff. He already uses the Howl of Shahiri, which is fine because it will boost its damage. The Golden Vow is a bit stupid if he casts, it never really happened. But you want the Mimic to cast only the Thorns, that's it. That's why you don't want to have any more spells there. But the Thorns are boosted damage with the Staff of the Guilty, as you can read in the passive effects description, boosts Thorns sorcery. The percentage, it's not great, but it's enough to make a difference. But for the Golden Vow, it increases 15% the damage output. For the Howl of Shahiri, or the Howl of Shakira, like I like to call it, it's another 25% damage boost. From the White Mask, you get a total 10% damage when the bleed procs. The Lord's Exaltation Talisman will give you an extra 20% damage when bleed occurs. The Grave Mask Talisman gives you an extra 8% damage. The Madness Talisman, the Aged One Exaltation, gives you a 20% when madness occurs. Because you are using the Hour of Shahiri, you will cause yourself to get madness, and this will boost the damage as well. Rakshasa armor set, each piece increases the damage output by 2%, so in total we get an extra 6%. And then you've got the magic tier on the flask, which will give you another 20% magic damage boost. Now, if you write down all the numbers I just said and you make the math, it's 114% damage increase to the Impenetrable Thorns, which will cause bleed every time you cast it. So it's just a tremendous amount of damage per cast. You're going to be doing thousands and thousands and thousands of damage in just 4 or 5 casts. Nothing survives, and you are going to see in the examples that I'm going to give you for PvE. The usual suspects are, of course, the Black Knight and the Chief Blood Fiend. But I gotta say something about this build which is quite important for those of you who might feel tempted about using this in the arena. Can I use this in the arena? You can. I've done it, and I've managed to kill. I've done 3 duels, and in all 3 duels I killed my opponents. But probably because they were not expecting it, or second, they just were not familiar with what this thing does. Because the experienced opponent will avoid all your cast of thorns. I'm going to give you an example as well, because my last duel in the arena was against someone who dodged almost all my thorns. But all it takes is for the thorns to hit once, and you are most likely going to win. At best, you'll have to use it twice. So I'll give you just a few examples of PvP so you can see that it does work. Unless the opponent, of course, attacks you straight away and you cannot cast the Golden Vow or the Shahiri. You will still do a decent amount of damage, but it's not the same. So I would strongly recommend using this build exclusively for PvE. For PvP, there are much better options out there. Even on my channel, feel free to check. You'll find plenty of builds that are both useful for PvP and PvE. This one, I reinforce the idea, it's best to use only in PvE, especially for boss fights. Because that's where you're gonna have to use the big damage bursts to get things killed immediately. Another thing I want to reinforce before I give you the examples is the importance of the Mimic tier. Don't underestimate how much damage your Mimic tier will do, because not only it will also help with every proc of bleed, but it will also help with the madness as well. Sometimes you might be struggling with using the Howard Shakiri because the enemy interrupted you, and the Mimic will do it for you. So he will get the buff, and it will affect you as well, because as long as it's in the vicinity, you will get the boost as well with the Aged One's Exaltation. And that's pretty much it, guys. That's the build in a nutshell. But enough talking, let's show you the examples ahead. If you're new to the channel, just to remind you, please subscribe. I do appreciate all the help I can get with growing this thing. And for those who are returning, thank you so much for the support. Right, let's start with the usual suspect, Black Knight. First, we're gonna give ourselves some madness. Then we're gonna cast Golden Vow. Get that flask, change back to the Staff of the Guilty on the left hand. Consume the flask. And then it's just pressing R1 till the end of time. I am quite far from the enemy at the moment, that's why the bleed buff is not proccing, but now we did. And now it's just, as you can see, 11,000 damage per cast is just stupid. And it's GG for the Black Knight. Even my Mimic was proud. Now for this one, unfortunately the Mimic tends to be quite stupid lately during this fight. He just stands there not doing anything because he gets extremely upset about the enemies outside the fog trying to give us some beef. In any case, we're gonna go with the usual stuff. Try to just stay away for the time being. Don't worry about so much about buffing. We want the boss to get his attention on the Mimic. I did manage to get enough space there to cast the Golden Vow, so one of the buffs is already up. I'm going to try to get the Owl of Shakiri. As you saw, the Mimic actually attacked the boss with the Owl of Shakiri, which was fun enough. And then you just gotta consume the flask, and then press R1 and watch the boss. That was actually a bad one because he jumped, so it only did about 3,000 damage. Let's see what happens now. 7,000 damage. He actually manages to smash my face, which I don't have a problem with it. How much is gonna do? Another 7,000, more or less. And then the Mimic finished the job for us. Thank you, my friend. But now in the PvP, again, if you have enough time to cast this stuff, well, your opponents just don't know what's coming. This guy actually got close enough and got the madness triggered, which was his mistake. And then he tried to palm face me, which, okay, not ideal because I'm just gonna thorns you. And that one did 1200 damage. And then he did that, which is a very bad idea because I'm just gonna cast thorns away and finish the job. But again, you can tell this is not an ideal build for PvP. Now, again, this enemy gave me enough room, and then he got close enough, which gave me the chance to cast the madness. It affected him a little bit, but he didn't proc the madness. He blocked those thorns, and as you saw, it still did 200 damage. He's actually trying to kill me now, which is fair enough. I'm trying to get just enough room to cast it one more time, trying to get the hit or the trade. I managed to get it hit, even though he got the jumping attack. He landed precisely the moment the thorns came out of the staff. GG. Another example, just so you guys see, it can be done, but it's not really suitable for PvP, but it can be done. But look at this guy, he's gonna come for me. He actually fought me a minute ago, but you see that much 1200 damage straight away with one cast. He's gonna try to hit me again with the blasting weapon, but my thorns are already on the way, buddy. GG. I'm gonna give you one last example, and this is actually the most important example. This guy is gonna make me pretty much run out of FPs, because he's going to cleverly just run around and avoid the thorns, which is what everybody's going to do. But at some point, I actually managed to hit him twice. Now, this is the first time. He didn't dodge. He still got like 900 damage, which isn't great. The bleed didn't proc, but he's just going to strife around, and he's going to avoid all the thorns just by slightly dodging. So, this is the reason why this is not ideal for PvP. For PvE, I absolutely recommend using this thing. I mean, I used it myself. I killed Radagon using this with my Mimic's trusted assistance. We got the job done quite quickly, and that was it. If you guys are looking for a build that allows you to cheese bosses if you are having a hard time in the DLC, I can't recommend this build enough. If you want to check where to get the spell or the items that you're gonna need, you will find plenty of guides on YouTube. Just look for one. It's quite easy to get these pieces anyway. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. This is going to be a short one because it's pretty much just suitable for PvE. Quite unusual of me to do. If you haven't subscribed just yet, please consider doing so. It does help the channel grow. For my usual visits, thank you all for the support, and I'm looking forward to see you in the next one. Thank you all for watching. Cheerio!